driven by self and emotions, and self and emotions, it never leads you anywhere good. A life ran on emotions is chaos. And that's something that I learned.
Tulsa Talks is the podcast that is inspiring people to have everyday meaningful conversations to gain perspective and help the world.
Welcome to Tulsa Talks, where we have great conversations, trying to understand different people's perspectives and challenges. We have Frank Thompson here today. He's passionate about opening a nonprofit to help transition young men from one situation into real life so that they don't go back to their old life. Mm-hmm. Frank, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me again. I enjoyed it the last time.
So tell me about what this thing is that you're doing.
So Pushing for Purpose is, the goal of it is the whole point of it is loving others by action, right? And the demographic we're looking at are the young men who are aging out of the system, out of the foster care system, out of the DHS system. And a lot of these young men, they're troubled. Most of them are. They got their own problems with abandonment issues. Some of them have went down the substance abuse road. There's a whole lot of them, and I know for the most part, when I've seen other people, when it comes to these, even other parents who have their own kids who are going through substance abuse issues, it's so easy with this certain demographic to say, you know what, go make your own mistakes, throw your hands up and just kind of walk away.
That seems like a pretty clear path to prison or harming themselves somehow.
Yeah. And I get it. On one sense, you're trying to protect your sanity. On one sense, maybe you have other kids you're trying to protect. And I get that. But this attitude of not my responsibility anymore, especially when they turn 18. Right. So what the age we're focusing on is after they age out. So it's after they turn 18. So yes, they are legally responsible for themselves. And when most young men who have this knuckleheaded attitude, when they turn 18, it's not uncommon for the parents or, for whoever's their guardian at the time to say, you know what? Get out. You're legal now. It's not legal for you. So, get out. Go make your mistakes. Go do that, And it's the hardest people I have found to try to reach, as far as talking them into, what they should and what they shouldn't do, what their next move should be. Because most of them, they don't want to hear it, and I'm finding that a lot with the kids that I deal with. They're just so sick of being in this facility, right? This state mentality, right? The next meal is at this time. The next thing, you got meds, you got... you can't leave a certain area, right? So you feel like you don't have a certain freedom. And so the second that you're like, hey, here you go, good luck in life. Yeah. Most of these kids just run to whatever they want to run to. And what I'm trying to do is provide for them something that I experienced when I got out of prison. If it wasn't for the rehabs, the sober living houses, some kind of structure for me to go into, I would probably still be running the streets, right? Like I would still be out there doing whatever I wanted to.
Yeah. A lot of people become institutionalized.
Yes.
And I used to have a company. Our company used to pour concrete and build retaining walls. And I was at the Salvation Army years ago, and I'll never forget what this guy he was in his 30s told me. He happened to be standing outside while I was measuring their parking lot to replace their parking lot. I said, and I'm friendly with most people. Mm-hmm. We got into a conversation, and I said, well, what's your life goal? It was just somebody out there hanging out, how they do down there downtown, waiting for their next meal, somewhere to stay. Man in his 30s, his life goal was to not go back to prison until after he was 50 years old. Can you imagine that response? Mm-hmm. I can't imagine that response. That response is outside of the realm of my reality. Mm-hmm. These kids that you're talking about that are 18, and they are institutionalized to a certain degree because they've been under this structure.
Yeah.
And you're talking about giving them a safe way forward.
Yeah.
And safe living environment with some structure, but kind of easing that structure back just a little bit in order for them to be able to have a sense of freedom without going buck wild.
Yes.
Giving them some sort of guidance, and you're going to have this in like some written formats, and you said last time you were here that they don't know much about anything about living a life of an adult at that time.
Yeah.
And they were missing some critical life skills to be able to do that.
Yeah.
What are those life skills? Give me some examples of that.
For example, like there's a young man I know who's getting out in the next 6-7 months. He'll be turning 18, and it's going to be hard for him to get a birth certificate, because it's like, even if he does have the proper documents to go and figure it out, like it just things like that, Social Security card, these, it's like, do you even know mom and dad's name? Right. Cause he's been in the system since he was about 9 or 10 years old. And
when I was 18, I had a hard time getting my things together to go to college.
Yeah.
My parents weren't there to support that.
Yeah.
Mom was working, dad was living in a different state. And I started to go to college, realized it wasn't for me, wanted to own my own business. Maybe it would have helped me, maybe not. But just that entry level, entering into the system, I didn't know how to navigate it. So I can relate to those guys that are 18 years old, trying to get all of this documentation together.
Yeah. And not just the documentations. It's like, okay, so when you live in a place for your whole life, and then you're like, okay, here, you're free to go and do whatever you want to do.
What do you do?
Where are you going to go? You know what I'm saying? Like, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? And I think I said this the last time I was here, and I say it quite a bit, where the way that some of this is set up is these kids are taken away from certain situations because it's vital to their safety, right? Some parents aren't fit to have children. Some situations, some environments aren't fit for kids. And so the state sees that and they're like, hey, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that. And then they take these kids from this environment and they house them and they keep them. Right. And some of them get adopted, some of them don't. Some of them go to foster care, some of them don't. But then it's like, okay, you're 18 now. Good luck. And then they let them go.
Why?
And then it's, where are they going to go? Well, they're going to go to the last thing they remember. They're going to go back to where mom and dad are. They're going to go back to an environment where it was too unsafe for them to be as children. So they take them, and then 4 or 5 years, it's just like, okay, now you can go back over there.
Catch and release fishes.
And
put them back into the jungle.
Yeah, but all the way that I see it is, there was a disruption in this kid's life for so long. All he wanted to do was be home, and now then you put him in a structure where it's like there's really no freedom, nowhere for him to go, and then you let him go, and then it's like 18, man, they're just gonna go wild, and they're gonna go wild in an environment that was unsafe from the start, right? And that's the cycle that leads to the penitentiary, that leads to
homelessness.
Homelessness, and now every other month, man, I'm hearing about a friend of mine or somebody I knew, who's passing away, who's dying of an overdose because fentanyl is just killing everybody, and it's like weird. That's what they're going back to, and I just try to step in and say, hey, here's an alternative. And I'm trying to do it the only way I know how, and that's in a sober living setup, right? That's how it worked for me. It's not going to work for everybody, but that's how it worked for me, right? I moved into a house. It was a nice house. It was the nicest house I've ever lived in, right? Yeah, there was like 8 other guys there, but it was upstairs, downstairs. It had a master bedroom downstairs. I was there for long enough that I got into the master bedroom. And when I had it, I didn't want to let it go. And then I took care of it. I made sure everybody's got chores. So I made sure that, I did my part to make sure this house stayed as good, and when new people came in, and just to see the look on their eyes and say, man, this is the nicest house I've ever been in. It comes with a level of treating it with respect, right? Now, most people aren't going to treat it like that way, but for those who are really trying to do something in their life, I don't want to just throw them in a shack somewhere on the other side of town, I want them to have something where they can come home to and make it feel like a home after being in a facility for so long. And so my heart is set up on setting up our transitional livings this way.
So give them some structure.
Yes.
Get them to have a job. Get them to understand the importance of having all of their paperwork in order.
Yes.
Help them understand how to pay bills.
Yes. So the first part of the stages that we have, right? The first part is going to be solely focused on the personal side. You know, it's going to be hard to break habits, especially when you have a structured habit of being in a facility for so long, right? They're going to have to understand the do's and don'ts of what you can and can't do. You know, and then we have partnerships with mental health facilities where it's like, okay, now you're going to start working with this guidance counselor, this therapist or whatever, you know, and you start working on that, try to find some of yourself outside of a mandatory visit with a counselor. Right. I mean, it's still mandatory, but it's like now it's not you and it's somebody you can go and speak to, and you get to leave that place. You know, and I'm praying it does a little bit different. It's something different. And then, you know, working on the chore part of it, setting up the structure of the house, treating the house with respect, right? And then you move into the second stage. There will be a treasury of the house. There will be those who once you've been there long enough, you know, you'll learn how to balance a checkbook. You'll learn how everything's going to be in the house's name, but you know, it's like somebody's got to make the deposit slip. Somebody's got to make sure that rent checks are made and things like that, you know, and teaching these kids how to utilize, you know, just the daily paying bills, understanding what it means to financially maintain your life, you know, and treating them with respect, getting a safety or starting a bank account and and what it means to have $1,000 in a savings account that you don't touch.
Average American has less than $500.
Yeah. And you know, it's I've never understood that. Like,
and are debt laden where their net physical assets are in the negative.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's average American.
Yeah.
So you're trying to set these kids, these young adults up better than that.
Better than the fact it's just like, hey, there's something important with having a financial safety net. Right? Like, I never understood, and I'm 35 years old. I didn't start doing this until a few years ago, you know, like there's a sense of security that I have that if for some reason something happens to my car, I'm not stuck. I'm not struggling like, man, I just blew a tire. I got to go buy a new tire. Like I have a safety net, you know, a financial safety net that if something in life happens that, okay, well, I don't have to panic, you know, I just have to replenish now.
Right.
You know, and I didn't understand the overall financial security that brings to my life. You know, like, I mean, of course I still got debt and I still got stuff I'm paying off, but just in case life happens, I got this money stashed away over here that I don't touch.
Yep.
You know, like that's important.
Yeah.
And so in order to move from one stage to another, it's like, hey, you have to have this and you have to have this amount in this savings account and you have to show on a statement that it hasn't been touched in this long, you know. That you need that to move to the second one, right? And the second one would be more of a structure phase. By this point, they had been with their company because each stage that we have is roughly 6 to 8 months. You know, it's not like we're just whisking them in and out. We want to get them there. We want to get them out in under 2 years. You know, but that's 2 years of just trying to give them life skills. So that way, when the time comes for them to leave our house, now they're not in the same position they were in when they walked out the front gates of the facility and they were like, good luck. Now you have a couple of tools with you.
Yeah.
Now you understand how this works and you understand how bills work and you understand the importance of, you know, consistency at work and showing up and, you know, things like that. And so it's just giving them an opportunity at life, you know, giving them something that they wouldn't have got anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I needed that, you know, when I moved into a sober living house, I lived into a sober living house where we rotated offices, right? And it was president, secretary, treasurer, and, you know, other ones. And, you know, one was like, hey, you're in charge of making sure everybody does their chores. And hey, you're in charge of making sure the bank deposits get checked. And hey, you're in charge of doing the interviews for the new people coming in. And hey, you're in charge, you know, it was a different office where you moved into it every 6 months and you handle a different set of responsibilities, you know? So Wednesday and Sundays, you know, and I still do it to this day. Wednesday and Sundays, that's the day that I actually like, I'll tighten up through the week, but on Sunday, Wednesday evening, cleaning the house. Sunday evening, deep cleaning the house, you know, just to make sure that my stuff stays in order because I pay for it and I want it, you know, to be respectable. And but I just those skills, like I still do that. I would have never got that if I didn't move into this certain sober living house, you know?
Why do they not do that in the facility? 318.
I have no idea. I mean, they have chores. They make them do chores. I know that. As far as how they run their facility, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's their business.
Yeah, I don't
but
ask a lot of
these
questions.
people that are coming out don't have these life skills.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah, not to an extent where, you know, it's not to the point where they can successfully go and live on their own. You know, I don't believe so. I have a young man right now that I talk to a lot, and you know, we were talking about it just this past Sunday. He's in the time that I've known him, he was excited about going to the Army, and then it was something else, and then it's something else, and then it's college, and then it's, you know, and then so he just has a lot of these dreams and a lot of these things, and he puts a lot of his eggs into one basket. You know, each time it's like, oh, I'm going to the Army, going somewhere, you know, and then it's, no, I'm going to do this instead. And it's just like, you know, he's a kid and I get it, but a lot sooner than later, they're going to show you the door. And if you don't have one of these plans nailed down, you know, with as fast as it's this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, you're putting a child out on the streets. He might be 18, but he's a child, you know, like my son out there. If I give him an option of going doing this or going doing this, you know, today it's Dave and Buster's. If I put anything else next to Dave and Buster's, he's not going to want to do it. You know, no, don't care how good it is for him. He wants to go do this. And that's what that's how some of these young men will be coming out of there. You know, they're going to be driven by self and emotions, and self and emotions, it never leads you anywhere good. You know, a life ran on emotions is chaos. You know, and that's something that I learned. So I'm hoping that given the opportunity, I can stand up and make a difference in some of these young men's lives. You know, and it looks like weekly check-ins, you know, house meetings every week. Nothing, you know, it's there's 100 sober living houses around here, and they all run a certain model that are similar, right? Because it works. And you know what doesn't work is those who come in and kind of want to slack off, and you're gonna have them. You know, I think that's gonna be the hardest part, is watching some of these kids who just want the place to stay and, you know, not take it too serious. And then I tell them, hey man, look, you're gonna have to hit the road because, you know, you're taking somebody's spot. You know? And I have no doubt that's going to be hard, but, you know, that's what comes with it.
I say that sometimes when organizations do that to people, say, got to go, it's actually doing it for them. Yeah. Because they are not ready to learn. Maybe they have to experience a little bit harder life. Yeah. So that they can return, and it can be for them too. Yeah. As far as the growth that you guys are offering. Yeah. You guys doing what you do reminds me of a friend of mine that used to go around to Sunday schools. Yeah. And he would say, support my ministry going to prison so that I can talk to these people and help them. And I have a program that I'm going to help them actually live that they can learn while they're in prison. Or don't help me and have those people of the same mindset come out of prison that went into prison and let them affect your life. Tell me which one you want. Yeah. Do you want... Now, we're at a church, Sunday schools. These people are supposed to be about helping other people. But when he turned it around and made it personal to them, how it was going to affect their life if they didn't do that, that's when the money flowed. Yeah. 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 I know there's steps that I think we need to take. You know, yeah, I'm not telling you about how you...
No, I understand.
I'm talking about what you can do for society. Yeah. You're not only doing it for these young men. Yeah. You're doing it for society. Yeah. Yeah. Because these kids are going to come out and they're going to go into something like you have. Yeah, they're going to go somewhere. They're going to go the other way, and they're going to mess with all of society. Yeah.
And you know, the thing is, man, I spend a lot of time up there. There's a certain lodge that I volunteer in when I go up to the boys' home. You know, and there's anywhere from 6 to 8 young men who are in there. All of them got many different personalities, you know, and they're all just the coolest kids, man. You get up there, you just love them, man. It's like, God, you know, your heart starts to break when you think, man, who didn't take this kid that serious, you know?
Yeah.
And if
those kids,
if I could wrap them all up and take them with me, I would, you know. But seeing them in a place where they're at, you know, seeing some of them every once in a while, you'll see the childlike wonder slip through, right? And then of course the shell comes back. But every once in a while, like this past Sunday, I was up there, and you know, me and the little one talked about last time we played baseball. We got everybody out there playing baseball with us now. We had about 4 kids out there throwing the ball. And there's one kid out there. He's not the greatest thrower, you know, but he's been trying real hard, and that's what we did. He was like, hey, man, he's like, will you just throw this with me? And you could tell him really getting into it, right? Just this determination to learn how to properly throw this baseball, you know? And it's like, man, when's the last time you seen something like he was determined to do something constructive, you know? And when I see that, you know, I just want to help them all, you know? And so that's why I'm at this place where it's like, all right, God, like, if I see it, I know God sees it. You know, God sees it. And
if you see it, maybe God showed it to you.
Exactly. You know, and so I get a little discouraged. We just got denied for our first grant a couple weeks ago. And then I just got an email earlier today, and there was another one. They respectfully declined what we're doing. And I get it. Like, it's a hard push. You know, you're trying to take a bunch of young men right out of DHS, 18 to 20, you know, throw them in a house together. And you know, from the way I assume from the way that they see it, that we're just wishing for the best, you know, but like we have a plan in place, a plan that I believe is going to work, you know? And so I'm just taking
for some.
Yeah.
If you expect it to work for all.
Oh, no. You know
we
what?
already covered that somewhat in the podcast.
Yeah. There's no way that I see this working for
100%.
everybody, you know, but you can't give them the want factor. You know, you can't make somebody want something.
Right.
I mean, you can't make them, you know, like we say in the rooms of recovery, you know, I can't tell you, you know, what your powerless looks like. Like I can't admit that you're powerless for you. That has to be a you thing. And it's the same way with somebody. Like, you're gonna really have to want to try to have a better life, you know. Or you, like I said, you can go live your life based on emotions. You know, and even in that sense, it's like, man, I'll love them. I'll love them from a distance. I'm going through a situation with a family member of mine right now. You know, they're doing their own thing. They're experimenting with a couple of things that I've been down. And, you know, as much as I've said, hey, you know what, you've seen where it's going to lead, you know, that, you know, it took us this way. And, you know, but at the end of the day, it's like, I can't stand in front of their consequences, you know, and as much as it's breaking my heart, you know, I have to sit back and I just have to believe that the same God that seen me through it will see them through it. And, you know, it's a hard ask sometimes, you know, especially when it's somebody so close, you know, and you watch these young men, you grow up and then you start seeing them experimenting with things. And it's just like, man.
That's not okay.
Yeah, it hurts, man. It hurts, you know, but.
What do you do?
What can I do, you know? I can't control it, you know, I can't cure it. I just have to remember that I didn't cause it. And the only thing that I can do is display to them that there's a program that works when they're ready, you know, and that's because I'm working it. I'm working my program. And, you know, they know what I was like before. They know some of the crazy stories. They've seen the recklessness themselves. And it's like, if it's going to work for somebody like me, it'll work for somebody like you, you know, and instead of falling in a little, you know, pity pot, which is what I did for 2 or 3 weeks, I fell into this poor me mentality. But then I had to just realize.
So Frank wasn't getting his way right now?
No.
Keep on walking.
It was, you know, we have this saying in the rooms of recovery. They say, you keep walking around, you're saying, pour me, it's going to turn into pour me another drink, you know? And so I had to just find a way to just, you know, get out of it. And it took me an authentic worship, right? And what I mean by that is I walked into church. I had the old ladies, I had my stepkids with me, and they go to church. We all go to church. I was in no mood to go to church. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to hear what they had to say. You know, I was just in that place like, man, don't you see what's happening in my life right now? Like, I don't want to, you know, I'm just feeling like God's so far away, just one of those days. And I remember I walked into church and I think I said something in my heart that I hadn't said in a long time. You know, and I walked into church to drop these kids off, and I just remember like thinking, I don't even know why I'm here, you know? And then I said, all right, God, you know what? Today's the day. Like, speak to me.
Yeah. Show me why I'm here.
Yeah. Speak to me or don't, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. And I know it wasn't theologically correct and probably not the right, you know, but in the moment, it was like, that was the most honest that I felt in my heart. This is a child throwing a fit, you know?
There are a lot of biblical examples of men saying, show me.
Yeah.
Thomas.
Yeah.
Thomas said, show me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to believe it until I touch it.
And, you know, and the thing is, he
let him touch it.
He did. Before that service was over, I was on my face in the middle of the chapel there in Battle Creek. It's a pretty big chapel. And I was on my face and I was crying, you know, because I had forgotten. I just lost the actual sight that, you know what, the pastor said, hey, you know, God doesn't have grandkids, right? God don't have grandkids. We all have to come to him, you know, one way or another. We all have to come to him. My kids don't get in because they're a byproduct of me. That's not how this thing works. And so as much as I love my family, I love those around me, I can't make them love God. And in that sense, I don't have power over it and I don't have control over it.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
It's a great thing. You know, and then I found myself in a place was like, you know what? I surrender all over again, you know, and I just leave it at the foot of the cross, and I got up and I went about my day. And it's not like everything was, you know, sunshine and rainbows right then, but I just had this sense in my heart, you know, that you're doing something, you know, you're doing something. And it's kind of the enemy's job to throw rocks at you when you're doing something, you know. And I've just been getting hit with a lot of rocks lately and, you know, kind of throwing a fit about it. Not handling it gracefully, I'll admit that. But I'm in a better place today, you know. And I do believe because of the adversity that's coming that there is something right around the corner, you know, and I will not see it any other way now, you know. But now it's just like, we just need the money. But until then, man, I'm still, you know, boots on the ground up there, just doing the stuff that I know that I can do.
You got all your stuff together, ready?
Yeah. Yeah. All we need is the place.
All the documents are ready.
All we need
all
is
the plans are ready.
All we need is the place. Yes, sir.
I look forward to you receiving the place.
Yeah. Yeah. We are too. We're simultaneously looking for 2 houses, one for me and my wife and one for this thing. So, and now is not the time to be looking for houses. Now is not the time to try to buy a house. We're trying to buy Tulsa. 2, you know?
Tight market in Tulsa.
It's something.
Yeah, we had a house go up for sale 2 doors down from ours, and it was sold in like 2 days.
Yeah. But you know what? God is good, man. And
he'll open the door to that house.
Yeah, he has something, so.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming to share with us the struggles of going through something that God placed in your life. Yeah.
You know what? I will say this. You can tell. I always hear people, especially inside the church, they say, God will never give you more than you can handle. God will never give you more than you can handle. I don't think that's right either. Yeah. It's just like, you know
don't need God if it's more, if you can handle it. You don't need God.
Exactly. You know, and I think about Moses. I've been thinking a lot about Moses lately, right? When God called him to go and get his people, he tried to do it in his own in the very beginning, right? And it went south. I look at the life of Moses and what he's trying to do, and I tell my wife this all the time. It's like, I'm not trying to say that I'm Moses, but I get where Moses is coming from. Like, God, I'm trying to do this. These are your kids anyways, like they're not listening. They're not getting their together, like I feel like I'm bucking up against everything else and them and you, but this wasn't my idea to begin with.
Yeah.
And I think it was because of the honesty in that leadership, where that's why God used Moses. That's why God used Moses, because he knew that when push come to shove, there's that moment of like, this was your idea. It's that surrender. I find that surrender. And when God calls you to move, it's not going to be easy, but
he'll give you the staff.
He'll give you the staff
to hit the rock to get the water. He'll give you the staff to put in front of the Red Sea
he'll give you the
part
staff,
the waters,
and he'll give you his name,
and he'll give you a voice.
Yeah, and he will send you on the way.
And he'll tell you how to use them.
Yeah,
moment by moment.
Yes,
he will tell you how to use those things that he has placed.
And it's not going to make any sense at all. There's a story.
Who the heck puts a rod in front of the ocean and expects the waters to split?
Here's the thing. It's like whenever there's a part in the Bible, in Exodus, where it starts raining snakes and people are getting bitten.
Yeah.
And he goes to God and he says, hey, help us do this. And what does God do? He doesn't remove the snakes. He gives them a remedy. He says, hey, you take this and you hang it up. And anytime somebody's bitten, they come and look at this bronze serpent, right? Which is ironic. Like, you're looking at the thing that caused you to be in the situation to begin with. There's a lot in that psychologically, right? Looking at the pain and trauma that you got here. There's healing in that, but there was never remove the snakes. It was no, we'll give you a remedy for when you're bitten. And I think there's a lot in that I draw from. It's like, okay, I'm gonna keep getting bit here, but there's a remedy, and it's to look to the one, right? Look to the one that hung on the cross. Even Christ said it. At one point he said, like Moses and the bronze serpent was lifted up, so shall the Son of Man be lifted up. And so it's like, whenever I start struggling with some of these things, it's like, look to the one who was lifted up, which is some days it's harder than others. Some days it seems super simple.
You said a couple of things. You said a lot of people in church say that God won't give you more than you can handle. Mm-hmm. And we both disagree with that. Mm-hmm. I say that if it was easy, that you wouldn't need God. Yeah. Not only, because in our humanity, we want to run the easy button all the time. Mm-hmm. We want things to be smooth sailing. We want things to be the way we want them. Yeah. Selfishly, pridefully, because we think that we know better than God. Mm-hmm. We think that the easy way is the right way. And that's not how we get developed. Yeah. We get developed through perseverance. Yeah. Because what happens if you got that first grant yes? Would it have made you as focused as you can be by having to go through that process a more difficult way? Yeah, absolutely. This might prepare you for the challenge that running this business is going to be. Because not all of it is going to be yes all the way through. Yeah. So if you take this and you run with it in the right way, and you learn how to count it all joy, mm-hmm. then later when things get really tough, when you're in the middle of it, you're in the middle of that desert, mm-hmm. wondering where your water is coming from, mm-hmm. wondering what you're about to eat, because things aren't easy, you'll have this memory of, God took me through this. Mm-hmm. He's going to take me through that too. Yeah. Just like you have in your personal life now, but now you're transitioning into running a nonprofit. Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully our third conversation is, hey, look, we finally made it. So we'll see. Yeah. But I'm here to encourage you to know that I care And whatever we can do to help, we will.
God bless. Thank you.
Thanks for coming today, Frank.
Absolutely.
We are here to help you discover or develop your passions, how you can use them, and why you exist. How can we help you help others better?